nobody has time for your imposter syndrome. Like, you don't have time and other people don't have time. And I was like, ooh,
that's
I like
good
that.
one.
That's never been the intention. They're already doing these things anyways. Now we just made it a whole lot easier. It's not like there's anyone not being able to add a different color to a button before. It's just that now you can do it with one click. When we hear designers come back and say, I'm able to start a web design business now because of your tool. I'm able to quit my job. I'm able to scale more. I'm able to literally make 4 times the amount of websites we've heard, or charge double or triple the amount of time cost for a website. And now they've been able to be empowered to do that. As they said, you've literally changed my life.
What does it take to build a software company from nothing to an industry-changing, joy-spreading 14 team member business in 4 years? All while doing business very, very differently, focusing on people more than you do on profit. Husband and wife team Hannah and Nick of SquareKicker built something that allows all of us code-allergic web designers to whip up in seconds creative designs on Squarespace that used to take hours of writing custom code. The Squarespace community has raved over the tool and the very kind couple behind it. Nick and Hannah explained in this interview how they built their software to one that everyone in the Squarespace community is speaking about, even without an audience or a very thorough marketing strategy to start with, and also how they realized they had identified a real problem that they could turn into a highly successful business. If you're in the Squarespace designer community and don't already know Hannah and Nick, I can't wait for you to meet these beautiful souls. They have so much wisdom to share on finding viable business ideas, how to make products that actually solve a real problem, and how to hire a team and run a business which you love to show up to the office for. Nick and Hannah, tell me about, I'm personally just very curious. Did you have a background in software development, or like, how did you even get into like starting this business? What did you do before this, and how did that lead you into this?
I could probably start with that. This is a very interesting story. Well, we think it's interesting because no, we don't have a software background at all, really. In fact, my background primarily has been kind of in youth work. And so very not working with computers, mostly working with people, and actually found myself getting into kind of computer things, if you will, and really wanted at one stage when I was a small kid to make video games because I thought that'd be fun. And so I picked up a book on programming to make video games. I was like, oh no, that's not for me. This is not even close to playing video games. And so I ditched that dream really quickly. But I've always kind of had an inclination towards tech. I guess throughout the years of being a youth worker and always developing kind of events and flyers and programs and design and sort of ways to kind of communicate with people, I kind of found myself in tech somehow. But the linchpin that really kind of got me started was that I was kind of in my 30s going, I don't think I can do youth work forever. So what else could I actually do? I really enjoyed spending time with young people and in the community. I thought, well, what can I do to kind of prevent me from going full-time to something, but still do that on the side? So I thought, well, I can make websites on the side. Like that sounds like a kind of a fun idea. So I basically just decided to jump into that, basically to try to see if I could make a website, and looked at every single web making tool on the internet and decided that nothing would do the things that I wanted to be able to do. And my friend just said, look, you're just beating your head against the wall with all these no-code tools. Just learn how to code. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's that book again. I remember that book I picked up. I don't want to open it up again. And so I just bit the bullet and said, all right, I'm going to learn how to code. And just basically in the evenings, I just spent for the next year teaching myself CSS, HTML, JavaScript. And I thought, cool. I feel like now I know Kung Fu. Now what am I going to do with it? And then just one day quit my job as a youth worker and started a web design business overnight, really.
Cool. That is so interesting.
Yeah, software came later, but that was the jump into tech, if you will.
Okay, that's really cool. Okay, so then this brings me to the question. So did you develop SquareKicker yourself? Like, did you become so good at coding that you could do that yourself? Or were you hiring other people to develop it? Or like, how did that happen?
Yeah, well, that kind of where it kind of leans into Hannah, because I'm an ideas person. I have lots of ideas swirling in my head all of the time. This was just one of the web design thing was one of them. I think I mentioned it to Hannah. I was like, I'm thinking of making websites. She's like, cool, it sounds good. I'm like, oh, okay, I guess I'll do this now. And so quit my job, went into web design, did that for about 6 years. And what I started noticing.
from the ground
Yeah,
up, or
so
starting to
basically
use
making
builders,
websites and custom coding for clients, etc., and kind of built a large-ish business that was able to kind of go full time with it.
Mostly
So
with Shopify and Squarespace,
yeah,
though.
they were kind of
okay,
the two things I kind of niched in on. And then there was a period of time where I just noticed that everyone on the Squarespace forums, on Facebook, on any other forums I was part of, was always asking, how do I do this thing? What's the code for this? I'm like, what do you mean, what's the code? You just make it. Like, that's how you make code. And then I discovered that people were like actually writing code beforehand and then selling it, and they were calling them plugins. I'm like, so there's a whole business out there of people writing code and selling it as plugins. Like, okay, well, that's interesting. But I was like, what if that doesn't suit your brand? What if the client doesn't want that rounded edge? They actually need a different border or a different color. Like, you can't change that without knowing how to code. So you're kind of stuck, really. And I remember looking at a plugin website, and it was selling 4 different buttons. And one button, when you hover over it, is swipe to the left. And that was $5. Like, cool. I guess if you didn't know how to code, that would be fun. And there was another button that swiped to the right, and it was another $5.
For another
like,
$5.
You have to buy 2 buttons to do what? That doesn't. And then every single thing like that was like, well, if you wanted to change this, and especially if you use it on a client side and hand it off to your client, and your client said, how do I change the color of the button? Oh, no, you can't do that. You have to code it. You have to get me to come in. I just thought that's the last thing I want to do, is hand off a client website and for them to come back to me. So I thought, if I don't want to do that, then surely no one else wants to. So I started off with this vision of what would it look like to be able to sell a product that wouldn't involve people to know how to use code. And so I thought, well, I know how to use code. I know the pain point of I wanted to find this thing but couldn't. So how can I make something that was going to be able to give a designer or a client the ability to kind of empower them to make their website what they want to do without the code? The biggest issue I found is I was so busy every single day, like 50, 60 hours a week, coding and making websites for myself and my clients. And so I never had the time for it. And I think I looked at Hannah, who was in her own business, which she can go into later. And it's like, what am I going to do? I can't keep doing this forever. I need passive income to kind of, go with the next stage of life. But we just basically decided to hire someone to give me hand making websites. But on the side, in the low seasons of the clients, we can work on this kind of side project. And that's kind of the start of that idea. And Hannah, you can kind of pick up the rest, because I think this is where you jump in quite importantly.
Yeah, I think the really big part where it actually turned into what we know as SquareKicker now, and went from like this idea of a little bit of passive income, was during COVID. And New Zealand, where we are, went into like a full lockdown. So we were, we could get petrol and groceries, and that was it. So Nick was able to keep his business going. I was working as a photographer at the time, so my work was completely shut down. And we have 3 kids, so I was homeschooling them. And a lot of Nick's clients decided that they wanted to hold their projects. Everyone was financially just tightening up a little bit. Yeah, everyone got a little bit nervous. And so everything kind of stopped for a minute. We kind of went, well, what are you going to do with your time? We could sit on the couch, or we could do something interesting. And so Nick started working on this idea with Rowan, who we had previously hired to work on websites with him. And Rowan is a little bit of a genius, or a lot of a genius. And he is one of those amazing minds that kind of can just craft ideas, and him and Nick work really, really well together, kind of brainstorming and shooting ideas back and forth. And so I was downstairs homeschooling the kids, listening to Nick get more and more excited. And like he said, he had all of these ideas all his life. Ideas. Constantly throwing them at me. And I heard them getting more excited. And so I was like, okay, I'll come upstairs and see what's going on. And kind of we talked through this concept, and Nick was pitching it to me. And I was like, yeah, this is the one. Like, this genuinely solves a problem for people. You understand the problem really well because you have been that person. And there's clearly a real need for it in the community. There was nobody else serving this kind of product in this kind of way. And we wanted to design SquareKicker in a way that really served web designers. Like, how can we make a product that actually answers their pain points, that allows them all of that control? We kind of dubbed it having a web developer on your on your laptop screen. Like, what would it look like if you could have that kind of control? And so it basically went from there. I shut down my photography business pretty much that week. We got on the phone to the bank and got a new mortgage out on our house, and hired another developer because we needed some of those back-end skills to give us a bit more of that formal kind of software design ability. And then the 4 of us took off on SquareKicker.
Amazing.
So, yeah, that's
cool.
The origin.
That's amazing. Okay, talk to me about, okay, so you mentioned this casually, like we decided to take out a second mortgage and I like shut down my business within a week. How do you two make a decision like that? Or I don't know, like most people wouldn't make a decision like that. And so I'm just like, walk me through what you were thinking in that week.
Yeah, it's interesting. We probably get this a lot because, as I said earlier, I'm an ideas person. I always have lots of ideas. I'm always wondering and thinking and pondering, but I'm sometimes a bit too afraid to action on anything because, like, well, what if my idea is not right? What if people don't like it? I'm always afraid about the reception of how it will come across. And so I guess I always use Hannah as a sounding board with a lot of my ideas. And she is always like, nah, how is that going to work? Or, ooh, she identifies all the landmines everywhere that I just don't see because I'm in the clouds, like soaring around. And Hannah's on the ground being a realist. And so
it's a helpful partnership.
Yeah. And so I often use, if I know that Hannah kind of gives me like the tick, like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. I'm like, wait. So if you're on the ground seeing all the landmines and you still say it's a good idea, then maybe this is worth pursuing. And I think she probably saw a little bit of my spark and excitement, but doesn't get too persuaded with my charisma because she goes, well, yeah, I can see that. But she kind of gets around all the fluff and kind of sees like what's actually going to solve a real problem. But when we understood how to put like essentially a UI, like our own UI inside of a Squarespace natively, and when you did something visually there, it wrote something technically. Like, oh, if we can do the tiniest little thing here, I think the simplest prototype was when you click on a button, it adds a hover animation. Like, whoa, that just wrote custom code CSS for you that the user didn't see. I visually got to create. If we can do that one piece, then there's literally every single custom website worth $10,000 or more I've ever created could be done with this tool without ever having to touch or see a line of code. And so with that understanding, I guess we understand like how the website world works, and saw that, well, if we can do this, we can do anything. And that was enough for us to go, there's an opportunity here. And also we're young, we have like this crazy house that we built ourselves with a relocatable that we have a lot of equity on. Like, what's the worst can happen? Now we have a bigger mortgage. Like, it was kind of like, it was a risk, and it was a very big risk because we could just end up with a lot of money on our shoulders going, that was an interesting idea. But I guess in the end of the day, like it was a calculated risk, and it was I
think on a practical point, because I'm the realist
totally.
as well. We also like ran the idea past a couple of people that we trusted, kind of talked it through, got them to pick it apart, ask really hard questions, and be like, what happens if Squarespace doesn't like it? What happens if someone, how long is it going to take someone to copy the idea? What's all those really practical business questions that people could kind of ask us really solidly. And if we knew the answers, and if we felt like we were really confident in how that was going to work, then we kind of knew that it was going to be a little bit stronger. And we did jump on a call with Squarespace pretty early on. We were like, this is going to be a really important part of the business. We're going to want to make sure that our customers using the product can trust that Squarespace is okay with it.
Yeah, and it just makes their platform so much better. I mean, it just gives so many more people the ability to do things on the platform that they maybe would otherwise, I don't know, go to a different platform or something. So
totally.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing that I keep thinking, I hear people say all the time, like, Squarespace have said this to us as well, like, well, or how does Squarespace see you as just someone who just says your platform is not good enough, we're going to make it better? I'm like, oh, that's never been the intention. It's actually, they're already doing these things anyways. Now we just made it a whole lot easier. It's not like there's anyone not being able to add a different color to a button before or add a hover animation. It's just that now you can do it with one click instead of the copy and pasting code or writing yourself. So as a web designer making websites, we were still making websites on the side, and now using SquareKicker. And oh my goodness, I could see the reality of how fast I was able to put websites out, and thought there's real value in this because we're using it in-house to make client websites still. And that became a prototype going, a web designer says, I need an animation that kind of sticks something on the left-hand side and things can scroll on the right. I'm like, oh yeah, so we can make like a thing, and we develop a sticky split container. Like, oh cool, we'll use this in-house. And that turned into a product, and we shipped it to our designer who made a website, and now we can ship it to everyone. So it was kind of like we're using stuff that we're using every day, and now we're not spending several hours coding something. It gets a couple clicks. So we knew really quickly how valuable this product was because we were using it in our own business.
And particularly for designers that aren't technical, I think that was a lot of what we were trying to answer. Yeah, right? And I think there's a huge portion of that in the Squarespace kind of ecosystem of people that are amazing designers, but often those people don't carry the same skills that, you know, you need to be able to technically write the code. And so you get people that can code that maybe don't have the most beautiful aesthetics, and people that have beautiful aesthetics that can't code. And so how can we actually break those barriers down so you can activate all of those ideas for those beautiful websites that you see and you want to make and recreate, or, you know, those fresh ideas that you've got? How can we actually break down the barriers and allow designers to design?
Yeah, I really see it as something that allows people, like, if it was like, oh, I have to use show it because I want to move something like a tiny bit or turn it sideways or whatever, it's like, you actually don't now because you can with SquareKicker. So yeah, that's okay, so the next thing which I'm curious about is, from the time that you've decided this, so you make your decision, you get out your second mortgage, everything, until the time that you had a, I don't know, minimum viable product ready to be used and sold, like, how long did that take to actually develop it and get it to like the first version?
6 months. When we put out the MVP, we were so proud of it. We thought it was just the most amazing thing ever, and we'd answered a lot of the business questions that I think we were hoping to answer. But I think it had about 5 tools in it.
It couldn't do a lot.
It was a very minimal viable product. But it was enough to get us off the ground, and it was enough to get people interested and, I guess, test the theory. And because we were so focused on empowering designers, we just wanted to get a product into people's hands so that we could start talking to them. And so in those first few months past the MVP, it was all about like getting on phone calls with as many people as would talk to us and being like, hey, you bought our product. Why? And what else do you need? And getting their requests for features of going, how, well, this is great, but I really want to be able to do this as well. And so really, really quickly, we could start getting that feedback loop and making it something that was genuinely valuable to people in the industry.
Yeah, we had a massive ambitious plan to what this thing was going to look like on day one. And then when it rolled out the door, we're like, no one is going to buy this. Like, all you can do is like adjust the overlay of an image. You could change the hover on a button, but then you can change the font size on mobile. And I think some of those like little niche things that people could do, but had to use CSS to do it. And some things that were actually really hard to do, even though for us they were really simple, was enough of a hunger to say, oh, this is so much easier than coding. I don't have to do this anymore. And I thought, well, if people actually want this, man, they're going to be excited when we actually start releasing the real things that we thought this thing could really do. And I think the exciting thing is SquareKicker is obviously 4 years old now, and a lot of our development has been kind of focused on this other project that we've been working on, we just released, which we can talk about later. But the tools, if you will, have kind of stopped being in development for the good part of 3 years, but now we've kind of finished that project. We're going back into this year, 2025, as this kind of these new tools era. And we get to kind of revisit all the feature requests, all the ideas of making this thing what we really wanted it to look like and be. And it's been a sacrifice.
Currently, there's over 80 tools individually in the product. And then what we love about SquareKicker, which is a bit different than kind of the plugins that you described at the start, where you like buy this plugin, it does this one thing, is you can combine them all. So if you want that button to change color, lift and hover, you know, you can put it all in one. So we've never done the calculations of what would happen if you like added all the tools together, but it would be enormous.
Yeah, I mean, forget about how many plugins you have in a store. It's like you combine them, it would be tens of thousands of plugins if you were to kind of highlight them all and wrap them up as an individual item and sell it.
Amazing. Yeah, I love that. Okay, now I want to get, you talked about, so this, you've only had this out for 4 years now. You have grown this business very quickly. Tell me about, what has the marketing strategy been, or has it been word of mouth because the tool is just so amazing? Or like, what has the marketing, like when you first also launched this, did you have an audience of any sort, or like walk me through the marketing of this?
Yeah, so initially we're on every Squarespace forum that wouldn't kick us out, basically, which we got kicked out of.
And some that did, we snuck back in the side door.
But yeah, so we were just kind of in there saying, hey, we're building this thing. If you're interested, sign up. And I can't remember what the original wait list was, but it wasn't enormous, but it was enough to kind of,
it was more than 100.
Start. Yeah,
oh, that's good.
Yeah, we were pretty excited. So we just kind of started that way, and because Nick was already in the industry and had already formed a lot of those connections, he was already active in those groups, active on the Circle forum, places like that. It was a very easy place for us to start. So that's kind of where we got our foot in the door. And then basically our marketing strategy after that was very much product focused. So it was always build the great product and then they will come kind of scenario. But it was our company has always been very focused on empowering designers. And so every time we build a product, every time we make a business decision, it's how does this empower designers? Are we giving people something they actually need? And so it's kind of just driven from there. And a lot of our kind of marketing efforts, if you will, are talking to people, making sure that what we're building is really valuable to them. We put a huge amount of emphasis on our customer support, which Nick and I managed by ourselves for the first couple of years, and then we're able to bring the team in. But we intentionally did that so that every time someone was emailing saying, hey, this isn't working, or I really want this, or we were the ones getting that information, able to digest it, able to really quickly feed that back into the kind of product development. So we really understood what it was that our customers were looking for. And that was genuinely the first efforts of our marketing. You know, we had an email list building and a bit of an Instagram, but it's not like it was ever a specialty of either of ours. And so it was just very much people focused, and then lots of people sharing it once they kind of saw what it could do.
I think if anything I learned in the web design business, you need to be among people to actually make those connections to find work. And so went into kind of like a remote working environment where I just work from home. I wasn't actually making connections anymore personally. So I'm not the kind of person personally who likes to kind of go on social media and advertise that way, or to kind of cold call people. So I just found myself making local connections, and those people talk to those people, those talk to people. So I realized with SquareKicker, it was very much the same. I was just in those communities in a digital way. And just being a part of them, you know, being helpful, and then hearing things and suggestions like, oh, I'm trying to do this thing. Does anyone know how to do this? I'm like, well, actually, yes, SquareKicker can do that. The challenging thing was, after a while, I was like, well, actually, SquareKicker can do that, and it can also do that, and it can also do that. And so people got kind of annoyed to like, well, I have a one plugin that does this one thing, but if you take SquareKicker, you can do like 18 of all these things together. So I found myself just in those communities all the time. People from day one had a suspicion like, ooh, can I trust you guys? Like, are you, if I leverage my whole web design business and my career and my trajectory and partner with you, like, can I trust you? Are you going to be around in a year? Like, what's going to happen to my client's website if I ever leave? Like, all these things that we kind of had thought about. And we don't get that anymore because of the size it's grown to now and the reputation we have. But early days, we had to kind of earn that trust, because that was someone's business. They're putting on the line to say, yep, we can trust you and your code and your thing. And that was not challenging, but it just took time to kind of develop that trust with people.
Okay. And then you mentioned, so this like new project thing you were working on the past year, and the thing you're focusing on, I think, going into the future. Tell me about your decision to get into the template industry. What was like the thought process? What was going on there?
Like I said, we just talked to our designers all the time. And so once we got the extension to a place where we're like, it's a really valuable product now, it's pretty well built out. Like, what do designers need next? So we jumped on calls. We tried to pick a huge range of people that had really big businesses, really small businesses, and basically just ask them, like, what do you need? What are you struggling with? What can we build that will help you be more successful? And without question, the biggest thing everyone said was passive income. You know, everyone that's been in any kind of business like web design or any kind of creative service business knows there's so many ups and downs that come along the way. You know, you have a big boom on clients and you're super busy, and then it's low season and you're kind of wondering how you're going to make ends meet for a while, and then you've got this big boom again. So everyone was looking for a way to kind of even that out. For some people, that was so that they could hire a team because that was what they wanted to do, but they needed that passive income again to even that out. For others, it was they just wanted to work by themselves, but just have a little bit to kind of help with those ebbs and flows. We looked at that kind of passive income option and thought, what can we build that would be really valuable for people in that space? And that's where SquareKicker templates came out. So we kind of got those key pain points for designers, and then looked at creating a system, and we thought, right, we also have to solve the other end of it, because that template user also has to be interested in this product to make it valuable for the website designer. So then we started looking at how to solve the issues that template users are currently feeling. What is it like to buy a Squarespace template currently? What's it like to wait 48 hours to have your template delivered? Or, there's a bit of a trust issue there because you're kind of giving someone the money, but you don't actually instantly receive the product. How do you know you can trust them with your customer support? How do you trust the quality of what's being built? So lots of these pain points on both sides of the problem. And so we looked at how to solve that. And it was a much bigger problem than we initially thought we were biting off. I think originally we thought it was going to be about a year, maybe a year and a half to build it out, and we easily doubled that. But I think what we've come out with at the end is a product that really serves both of those ends really, really well, and we're really excited about how it might be able to shift kind of the whole Squarespace ecosystem in a lot of ways that you already see on platforms like Shopify with ThemeForest, or Sure, it's got some really great platforms that do that. WordPress obviously has these kind of already in their systems, but it was something that didn't really exist in Squarespace. So.
Yeah, I think only thing I would add to that is the unique thing about the SquareKicker templates is, Squarespace templates aren't brand new. Like, Squarespace does not have a templating system like WordPress or Shopify or a lot of other platforms. And so people have just figured something out. Like, how do I make and sell a template? I'll build a website, someone gives me money, and I duplicate it and invite them. That works. You get a template, and that's the industry as we know it. So rather than trying to think, how do we also do that? Or how do we streamline it, make it faster for ourselves? We come back to our vision. And our vision was to empower Squarespace designers to live the life that they want to live. And so that became a way to kind of help empower people with the extensions. So I can make websites faster, easier, and just either maybe scale my business or hire more people or more creative. So whatever it is to make your life kind of living the way you want to live. And so we could have just sat down and thought, cool, how do we make the best templates than anyone else? And then go out there and just make a big splash. And then everyone's like, oh no, now my thing's not going to sell. And so we thought that's actually not our vision. Our vision is not to dominate the industry. It's actually to empower designers. So how can we partner with already those designers? And so we, instead of deciding to make our own templates, we actually want to create a platform for other creatives to make their templates so they can sell them as well. So we wanted to solve their pain points, which intrinsically helped us with the technical side to empower them, because we could probably make cool templates, but there's no way we can make thousands of templates. We would just be a template shop, and that's not what we wanted to be able to do. We are not necessarily a bunch of people who want to make websites. We're actually wanting to make technology to help other people make websites. So that's kind of essentially where the difference, the pain points we offered are not how do we actually just make lots of money and sell templates, but actually how do we actually empower people to make, because there's so many creative people, so many creative designers.
And they look so good. We've been seeing these templates coming in as designers have been submitting us. So they basically, the kind of the nuts and bolts of the system is you come in, you're vetted as a SquareKicker template designer, and then we kind of unlock this space for you to build your templates, and you use the SquareKicker tools. So you've got access to all of those, and then you submit the template, and that gets kind of, we then run through it and make sure that it's kind of technically awesome and there aren't any issues, or it's great to have a second set of eyes on anything no matter what. So we provide that for the designers, and then once we're content and the designer's happy, then it gets listed on the store, and then it can be sold instantly, and the end user then has a set of tools very similar to how you install the extension. It's a really one-click kind of install process. And so with the designer side of things, when they come in and they've got access to the SquareKicker tools and they don't have to think about this whole sales process, they've been just like creatively unleashed. And the templates that have been coming in have been out of this world. We're so excited. There's so much diversity. Each designer is providing such a different template. There's huge templates, there's small templates, there's bright templates, there's subtle templates. They are just amazing, and we're so excited. And I think every time one comes in, the team's like huddling around looking through it. I'm so excited to see what these designers are creating.
I think we're actually surprised on what people make, because we're like, oh, how did you make that animation? So we actually open it up and go, oh, I see you had that layer with this scrolling effect, and then that's sticky, and this is opaque, and you're just trying to put all these pieces together. But the creativity to put these kind of things together is not something that you can just sell. You actually have to be a creator to unleash that creativity. And so rather than people asking us in support tickets, oh, I saw this website, can you tell me how to make that with your tools? I'm like, well, I could, but you could just buy this template now that's already pre-made, ready to go. And then off the shelf, you can start with that to kick off your website.
Such a fast, affordable way to get started.
Yeah, that's so great. I love this. That's really cool. Can you tell me, okay, so template game versus running a software company game. Have you noticed any differences? Have you had any like lessons in the process of launching this? Has this been very different or very similar to running the software? Or?
Yeah, I think like Nick said, it's, you know, in our mind, it is another piece of software. You know, we're not selling the template store as such as much as we've been busy kind of making the tools to empower this to happen. Obviously, alongside of that, we've had to promote the store and make sure that it's got lots of eyes on it and lots of interest. So I think one of the really challenging things for us in this has been to kind of balance the two ends of the spectrum that I talked about, those designers, and making sure that we serve them really well. We know that audience really well. A lot of them are really good friends of ours now. We have regular chats, we know what they need, we know what their pain points are. So I think the big piece for us was learning the pain points of their end user and understanding that, so that when we're providing a product to them, when we're talking to them, we really are answering the pain points that they also have and making sure that we can provide that. In saying that, there is a big space as well for professional website designers to use templates to speed up their process as well. So another big kind of challenge that we've found in that is trying to break that down inside of the Squarespace kind of circle. It's really like, it goes without saying on WordPress and Shopify, right? You go to your client and you're like, here's 3 templates that I think might suit you as a starting off point. Like, which one do you want to use? But inside of Squarespace, that isn't something that has kind of developed on the platform yet. There's a little bit of a kind of a imposter syndrome around starting with something like that. And we actually saw it when SquareKicker originally started with the extension. People were like, how can I hide that I've used your tool so that my client doesn't see it? Because I don't want them to know that I've used this. And we're like, well, sure, but it's actually okay to use tools that just help you be better and work
do things faster,
and provide something. And so I think a big part of that as well is breaking down some of those barriers for people in Squarespace alongside templates and saying, you know, it's okay to start with this, and you know, you can provide yourself a really fast jumping off point that's a really affordable way to get a website out for your client. And so it's really understanding those pain points and making sure we're serving that really well, I think would be the biggest shift that we've had to have.
Yeah, we've probably added to our demographic of who we're selling to rather than changing what we're doing, because we're still creating software. We're just creating software for a different use case. But like Anna said, the target audience has always been designer focused. It's been designer led. It's been how we building tools for designers, how we building tools to make templates for those designers, because we're not actually building templates. We're just building software so other people can build templates. But then we're now in the piece now where we're actually selling straight to a consumer, whereas before we've just been kind of designers find us and they use their tool. And because we know that community really well, like Anna said, we don't really know the car washing community as much. We don't know the architectural industry very well. So there's a bunch of industries that we have to be in and find out where they are. But what we do know is the people who are making those websites for those templates, they know those industries really well. So we leverage on their expertise, the kind of clients that they normally make for, and we're actually using some of their expertise in these kind of launch accelerator programs and helping people out with those pieces. So I think it will take some time. I guess any template seller we've ever heard of start to make templates, their biggest issue is, I've made this template, but then now how do I sell it? And they're all on their own. So I guess we have a community now of people to kind of, you know, hundreds of other designers working together to sell each other's templates and having that work together. So it doesn't feel like they're against each other competing like in another space. They're actually in a big community together trying to help each other. So we see that all the time in the spaces. Hey, I have this website, can you give me some feedback? Or I have this template, I want to do this animation, does anyone know how to do this? And so we see all that happening because they're actually generally trying to help each other out with those projects. They're not on their own selling and making their own templates. So we've really kind of created a hub to help this whole kind of community lift off and actually kind of go and change the world, so to speak.
I think one thing that we've really talked to our template designers about is focusing on niches that they already work within. So, you know, like you said, if you already do a lot of car washing businesses, make a template for that. You understand that client, you know what they need. You are going to be the best person to make that template. We've got someone that's made a lot of hotel templates because that's a client they understood really well. And so rather than saying, you know, go make a bunch of generic templates, it's what can you provide from your unique perspective with what you already bring from your web design expertise. That's going to be a really nice niche product that someone can just pick up and straight away go, oh, this template has everything that I need for my particular business. And so we've put a really big focus on trying to make sure that there are industry specific templates. And because we've got all of these amazing designers making it, we could build that out really, really quickly rather than an individual on their own going, oh, I now have to make, you know, 150 templates for every industry in the world. So that's been a really big piece of excitement, I think, around being able to kind of combine all of these designers together and go like, you don't have to go and make everything for everyone. Do what you do really well and focus on that. And of course, they've loved it because they get to make a beautiful website without a client going, ooh, can you change that blue to that blue? So yeah, I think they've had a lot of fun doing it as well.
That is fascinating. And it's totally what I'm always talking to my students about too. It's like, okay, what are your passions? What are your interests? Let's like go in that direction. So I think, we're coaching them on the same thing there. I also at some point worked in like a legal template business and helped them do their like sales marketing. So if you ever have questions, I'm always here to chat. I love to talk launching and everything. It's one of my favorite things. Okay, cool.
So well.
Oh, thank you. That's very kind. The other thing which you quickly touched on there, and when I met you in person, and I don't know, just like over the last year, this is what I've realized about you too, is very interesting. You seem to be driven by something much greater than just profit. And I'm getting the vibe that like you're here to bring goodness to the world. Can you tell me about like your business and life philosophy? Because I feel like it's a little bit different than most.
A book that's really changed kind of my perspective on, there's actually a couple books, but really the one is called Story Brand by a guy named Donald Miller. And he talks about the idea that most people who have a business or a website or whatever it's all about me. It's about my business, and it ends up pitching them as the hero. It's like, look how great I am. Look at my product. Look at my services. Come to me and buy all my stuff. And that you're trying to drive this kind of ambition of like, I'm the hero of the story. And he pitches that like actually people who come to your website, people who come to your business, they're not there because they're in love with you. They're not romantically involved with you. They're not actually go, well, you're here to be my hero. What they want to be is the hero of their own story. And so you actually pitch yourself not as the hero, but as the guide. And you're the guide to help them become the hero. And that's actually kind of where the name SquareKicker came from, because there's the idea that we want to not be the hero, we want to be like the sidekick. And so like the idea of us being in Squarespace and a sidekick is where SquareKicker came from. SquareKick didn't sound like a cool word, and the domain was taken. So SquareKicker was the name origin story it came from. So the idea that we don't want to be the heroes, we want to step out of the way and empower other people. And making websites for other people, when I was making websites personally, was if you just did it because you wanted to make money, it got really boring really fast, because now you're just making rich people richer. Like that's the whole motivation for you. So you get money and now they get money, everyone's happy. But there's something really rewarding about when you empower someone's livelihood, like when you're actually involved in someone else's life. And I've made websites for people, they come back and say, oh my goodness, this Christmas has been the best Christmas I've ever had. And the website is, the chocolate is rolling off the digital shelves, and it's all because of the work you've done to help me set myself up my business. And I'm like, wow, like because of that, they're able to go on holiday. Maybe they're able to do something different in their business now. And I help them empower them to do that. And that is such a more rewarding experience than just, I made lots of money in that project and move on to the next one. And I guess with SquareKicker and even the designers, like if we just took over and made lots of money and felt good about ourselves and drove around fancy cars, like we probably happiness would be limited, but we're able to empower other people. Like when we hear designers come back and say, I'm able to start a web design business now because of your tool. I'm able to quit my job. I'm able to scale more. I'm able to literally make 4 times the amount of websites we've heard, or charge double or triple the amount of time cost for a website. And now they've been able to be empowered to do that. And how we've, like, as they said, you've literally changed my life. I met with someone in New York at Circle Day on the rooftop, and they were just saying like, oh, I can't believe I'm meeting you because you literally have changed my life. Like, with your tool, I have quit my job. I have a new industry now, and I have a passive income of 80 grand a year, all focused on websites that I've only been able to do because of SquareKicker. And I'm like, how have we created this thing in New Zealand, of all places in the world, that have empowered somewhere else in America to make an $80,000 passive income a year? And now they have a different life because of it. And like that is so much more rewarding than I think any money can throw at you.
Yeah, it definitely comes down to that motivation. And I think, you know, for the people that I got kind of emotional listening to you, kind of like the people that we're serving with the product, but also for our own team. You know, our team has grown from the 4 of us to 14. No, we're 13 now because one of them left to go move in a different country, but we still love him.
Japan's cool, I guess.
Japan is cool. But yeah, so we've got an in-person team, which is kind of exciting for software. Like most people are remote, but we've really enjoyed being together and also providing that for our team, you know, a company where they can actually come and work on a product that they are genuinely pleased to put out in the world, that they genuinely see these effects. And that makes it so much more rewarding to turn up to the office, and we have so much fun together. And we talk about these things all the time. You know, we started with this intention, and we started with this concept that it wasn't just going to be about making a whole bunch of money. We obviously have to make enough to pay off that second mortgage, which we're still working on. But you know, it has to work for us. But it also had these bigger goals in it, and we wanted to have fun doing that. And so, kind of setting those up as really early pieces of how we built the company, really clear. And I think that's one of the advantages of Nick and I being married and being able to work on this together, is we could set those very quickly, and we had a very similar base to work from. But then setting up systems within our team and within our process and within our decision making that kept that in the forefront. You know, 4 years in now, I think we can genuinely say we still have those same intentions. They may even be stronger than they were at the start. You know, this concept of empowering designers to live the life they want. That was us sitting down with our team for almost a week, talking through why we do things. What, you know, what are we doing this for? What do we actually want to do? What does that boil down to? How does it actually look day to day, for us to be able to aim for these things, and spending time and intentional business time focusing on those things. We have a Slack channel called Best Wishes, Warmest Regards. It's a little Schitt's Creek shout out there for anyone that has watched that. And whenever we get customer support come in saying things like, oh my goodness, you've changed my life, or you know, one person that said, I used to make 4 websites in a year because I customed them to the nth degree, and now I'm making like 27, and so they've been able to increase. Like, those kind of things go into that Slack channel, and the team gets pinged with them on a daily basis. So it's always at the forefront of our mind. And when we're making decisions in the business about what tools should we build, what should we focus on, how should we spend, you know, our advertising money, it's always coming back to like, are we empowering designers with this? How are we changing people with this? What good is this doing? That's really helped keep that focus in the business, which I think it's easier to start with that, and it's harder to keep it continuation. And it's taken a really intentional steps for us to make sure that still stays a really big focus of the company.
I mean, we're just us who we are, and I guess we've hired people who we vibe off of. We don't necessarily look at do they have the greatest skills in the world, although people are really skilled on our team. We don't look at the people who've got the best qualifications or the best school. What we actually look for is, what are these people like? Do they have the same general interest in other people and care for people as we do? Because we know if they do, then that passion lingers, and that passion is more exciting than the skill they bring to the team or those things. And we sat down during one of our New Zealand lockdowns, and we're like, you know what? I think we need to sort out like who we are as a company. Like, what's our vision? Like, we've like 6 people at this stage, and we thought we should probably think about, what is it that we want to be? And rather than Hannah and I saying, here's our vision statement, here's our mission statement, we actually sat around and said, what do you guys think it is? And that was actually really rewarding, because they all kind of came back with different ideas, and we huddled together and picked apart what everyone's ideas were. And they were pretty much all the same, which would have been the same as what we would have picked anyways, which is the first one, which is really highlighted. It's actually about the people. And that's the center of where we started from and who we want to be and who we continue to be. And it's a New Zealand today word called called He Tangata, which means the people. And it's from a Maori proverb, which is, what is the most important thing in the world? It's the people, it's the people, it's the people. And so we focus on that. It's the people that we work with locally in our environment. It's the people that we serve. And it's also how we empower those people to go and live their lives and their businesses. So it's all about the people for us. And we don't want to ever lose that focus, that it ends up being about the money, about the growth, about the what if we could sell to Squarespace someday. And all those kind of big ideas. So it's actually really about how do we empower people. Yeah.
Hint, hint. It really comes through, I could say. Like I don't think I've ever really met I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen a software company where that comes through as clearly, really. So honestly,
that's really cool. Thanks.
Yeah,
that means a lot.
It does. Yeah. Because I know from the inside, it's kind of like, okay, well, we have these ideas, but is anyone else seeing that? And I can't say I'm feeling the vibe. So yeah, it's beautiful. It's an inspiring, very healthy business philosophy, I'd say. And also clearly has worked very well. So yeah. Final one, husband and wife team working together. If anyone else is thinking of doing it, any tips you have for them?
Yeah, I mean, we never fight, so no.
Our team thinks we never fight, which is great. I love the fact that they think we never bicker and argue.
I don't know. I don't know that they still hold that statement. No, yeah, it is really interesting. I think, like we just talked about, it makes it easier in a lot of ways because you kind of come with already a big foundation built. You understand each other, you understand what drives you. You can say things like, let's not make the bottom line of the company making the most money. Let's make it serving people, and that doesn't freak them out, which I think when you have business partners that are coming from different aspects, those kind of things are always going to be a little bit more tense. So you do come in with some advantages. We've listened to plenty of podcasts where it's like, if you're picking a founding partner, make sure you check them out really well because it's like a marriage. And we're like, great, tick. Like that's done. We've had all of those first year fights, that's way in the past. We just had our 17th wedding anniversary, which makes me feel
good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah. So we kind of, there's a lot of advantages to starting with that. There's also some challenges with it as well. I think things like learning to switch off, which we are really bad at. We kind of had this okay, we won't talk about work at home, and that lasted about 10 seconds. And then we're like, okay, we just won't talk about work when we're in our bedroom. And then we're like, okay, maybe we just won't talk about work at bedtime. So trying to claw back some of those boundaries sometimes is more challenging, partly because we're really excited about it. And so we're really excited to talk about it, and we talk about it with our kids, and it is definitely a big part of what we do. It's just all about talking about that, being really aware of it, being really fast to discuss those things. You can't let it linger because it's everywhere. It's your work and it's your home. It's not like when you go to work and you're like, oh, I've had a terrible day with my boss. I can just go home and complain about it. I'm like, oh, you're here as well. So, you have to work.
Why are you here?
Yeah.
Yeah. That is fabulous.
Yeah, I think the unique thing about us specifically is that we actually met each other as colleagues. So we were workmates before, obviously getting married. And we
in an outdoor education business. So
it's another
different
life.
path, but that's like 5 iterations of our life ago.
Hiking and kayaking and caving and climbing and we're living in a tent outside, and you see each other in your best and worst, environments all the time. So we kind of met each other in that environment, and I think we've also. When we were in the States traveling and working for a while, Hannah wasn't on a green card, so she was just basically working with me as well. So they were getting 2 for the price of 1, so involving in youth work. So we worked together a lot. And I think when we tried running our own businesses, that was fine. But because we were so busy, we just never saw each other, even though we were in the same house. We were so busy in the evening, trying to catch up on work, that we were always working on individual things. And so I would often disappear to code by myself. And Hannah would edit photos by herself somewhere else. And so we would just not necessarily see each other as much. And when we working together now, I think there's a synergy of we're able to do something shoulder to shoulder and work on the same thing together and share ideas. And because we all have the same values, and also we're incredibly different, the two of us. We don't share any of the same personalities, any of the same love languages. We're so different in every way, which can be a massive challenge, but also a massive benefit, because we actually can hopefully divide our strengths and weaknesses down the line very easily and actually say, oh, you're better at doing this than I am. How about you take on this part, and I'm better at this than you are. And so we can just shuffle around those responsibilities. And that makes us kind of one unit together, which is when you look at somebody who's got a superpower of everything, that person doesn't exist to you. That's why you need a business partner to share that load. And so when you're sharing that load with someone who you trust and understand, who has the same values, and you guys are literally in it, like everything is on the line for the two of you. You've got nothing else to lean on. There's no backing out now. We just knew, we could make this work. And actually we work better together than apart. So we just knew this was the right option and choice for us.
I think it takes a lot of respect. Like you have to know your own skills. And I think someone recently told me, this is my current favorite quote that's running around in my brain. I was chatting with my sister-in-law about a business thing, and she was like, nobody has time for your imposter syndrom. Like you don't have time and other people don't have time. And I was like, ooh,
that's
I like
good
that.
one.
So good, right?
And I tell some students that one. That's great.
Yeah, you can keep that.
Some people need to hear that, yeah.
Yeah. And it's so true. And I think that's the same, with our relationship. Like we don't have time and space for imposter syndrome with each other. It's, hey, you are better than that at me. Like I respect your skills there. You go and take the lead on that, and vice versa. And so there's no like, oh, I hope that somebody notices that I'm good at this. It's you have to be very, very quick to have those conversations with each other and be very quick to say, it's okay that you take the lead on this, or it's okay that I take the lead on this. And I think that's really helpful to be able to have very open communication. Yeah.
And we're not afraid to call each other out, because we don't have to worry about hurting each other's feelings. Not that we try to hurt each other's feelings, but when you want to say
marriage advice, Nick.
When you want to say something to someone, but you're always like, "Ooh, I'm not sure how to say this," because you know how to approach it. You know that they always have your best intentions, insights, and so when you hear it from someone like that, you tend to kind of, it's okay. You can actually say whatever you want, because you know that's coming from a place of genuine compassion, and I think you can get through a lot of the fluff a whole lot faster. So there's a lot of advantages there. And I guess the biggest and only hardest challenges is if, for example, we wanted to go away on a holiday, or if the kids are in school holidays and, one of us has to look after them. And so we were trying to juggle that, because normally as a family you go away, but now you're taking away the two co-founders away at the same time. You can't just look after the company while the one's away. So that becomes one of the biggest challenges I think we experience, because it is just the two of us as co-founders. And when we're both away, but when we have to juggle other family life, we can't just both do it at the same time. We are working on our structure now that our team's a bit bigger, and we actually kind of shipped this new product. We're actually in the middle of a restructure. In a sense, we're getting more ownership and responsibility to the team, so we can actually step away from those pieces of work and actually do more oversight, which is an exciting place to be, but it's also terrifying because it changes a lot. But it's good for us because it means that the whole team sees us. Like, we want you guys to go away. We don't want you to have to be here all the time for everyone and everything. So they're looking forward to it as much as we are for lots of different reasons. So it's being really intentional about your time. But I think it is for a season. Like, we are a startup. It is a lot of hours, the 50, 60 hours of work. You just grind, and it's every evening, and you know it's not forever, because this is an opportunity that we've seized and we don't want to waste it. And so we're just giving it everything we have. And so we understand that, our kids understand that, but we know that we have to actually make sure that it doesn't be the end of us at the same time.
Yes.
I think that's another really big advantage. I feel like we're like, and here's all the negatives, don't do it. No, like, another really big
There's
advantage
a lot of positives in there.
I'm glad we filtered in a few. Is if you were doing this kind of startup with this much intensity and you weren't doing it together, it would be so easy to be resentful of each other. If Nick was working as hard as he is and I wasn't a part of the business, I would be sitting there being like, oh my goodness,
annoyed.
It's like midnight. Can you hurry up and put down the laptop? But because we're in it together and we're both really passionate about it, it has meant that we could put in kind of 120% and it doesn't build resentment. We, over the last year especially, it's been really busy, and we were like, we have to do work well and we have to do our kids well. And if everything else falls away, that's okay. And I think just kind of...
Sorry, friends.
Yeah, sorry. we'll see you soon.
See you in a few years.
Yeah, so I think that is a really big advantage is that you are able to prioritize extra time when you do it together. And if you enjoy hanging out together, like that's a pretty big bonus as well. You know, we get to actually sit and have lunch together at work every day.
Yeah.
And, you know, when we stop, get up from
for lunch, if you do.
Which I'm getting better at.
No comment.
But yeah, so there are also a lot of good advantages. But yeah, if I would say if you're interested in working with your spouse and you have those different skill sets and you can kind of have that trust, it's so much fun. I would definitely encourage people to go for it.
I think the people who I've seen do it the most successfully, it is that they have two very different skill sets and they fully own different parts of whatever it is. Have you read the book Run Like Clockwork at all? No? Okay. That was the thing that allowed like, it was very beneficial for exactly what you're talking about, encouraging and making sure your team is confident enough and genuinely able to make like really great decisions without you there. That was the thing that allowed me to a little bit more be like, have a life and not be answering everyone's questions constantly. Or I take fully unplugged vacations and no one messages me for like weeks on end. And I'm like, that's a big success. So
good. Living the dream page.
Yeah.
We're going to have to take a leaf out of your book there.
I would recommend that was like, so that was well worthwhile. Not everything is perfect, but that at least I'm like, I can take a vacation and no one needs me. And that is
that's
what everyone needs.
Very cool.
People have gotten all the way to the end of this. They have loved every moment. Tell them where they should go next. What is the thing that they should go and look at or see or test your tool or look at the templates, or what do you want them to do after this?
You can check out SquareKicker for free. It's no credit card. We didn't want to have any friction at all. So people want to see, how does this thing work? What can I do with it? We've actually set up in a way that you can just try it. And the cool thing is you don't just get to try it once. You can actually get a free trial on any website, as many free trials as you want per website. So each website gets a free trial. So if you wanted to see what happens and I want to see what it looks like on my website, you can start a new Squarespace free trial. You can duplicate a website and just install SquareKicker on there and just see what happens and see what it looks like. And then you essentially just get to play with it without kind of any cost. And so that would be the first thing, just to check it out, see what it does. I always suggest people like, oh, can SquareKicker work for my client website? Like, just try it and see if it works. You got 14 days to figure it out. And if it doesn't, then you've lost nothing. You can just take it off and you're good to go again. But if you do want it, then you can pay for a single month and you can essentially pull all those 14 days of changes into your website. And then the cool thing is we didn't want to, again, be all about creating the passive income for us for those costs for those websites. So you can cancel that website and then all your changes stay forever. So you're essentially paying for 1 month for your
only pay while you use the tools.
Only pay while using the tool. So we didn't want to just, the biggest thing for me personally is I didn't want to use a tool that I had to offboard to my client to say, now you also have to pay for this other thing for $30 a month. But if it's all on the build cost, that actually makes a lot more sense. So you can use it as a build cost and your handoff is essentially free. They don't actually have to pay for anything ongoing. So that's the cool thing with there, but also that the templates thing is unreal. Like there's new templates coming out every month. There's over 80 templates right now. So just going to check out all the templates that are happening. And and once you find out for a free trial, you get notifications of what new tools are coming out. The Instagram is flooded with tutorials and new tips and templates that are coming out all the time. So just go to SquareKicker.com and go see what's around.
Yeah. And if you're interested in chatting more about business or how it's like working with your spouse, feel free to hit us up. We're both on LinkedIn. We're more than happy to chat. We love having these kind of conversations.
Oh, good. Thank you both so much. I really appreciated this. It was so interesting for me. So thank you.
Oh, thanks for having us, Paige.
Okay, so now you know all about Nick and Hannah. You're probably curious about what this magical tool that they made actually does. I actually used it in my most recent website redesign, and you can see it in action in this video here, where you can watch me live turn my ugly, outdated website into a stunning new design.